We'll take a few questions through, we'll take all your questions through the chat function. So as they come up, please enter them there. So again, good evening. Thank you for being here on a crazy windy Tuesday evening. My name is Sarah Miller, and I'm a board member of the Alameda Backyard Growers. We're so lucky to have with us tonight Lori Caldwell. Lori is an Alameda County Master Composter and a self-taught edible gardener and a residential sheet mulch maven. Best title ever. She's also the owner-operator of Compost Gal Consulting, Landscaping and Education, and she's been happily teaching sustainable garden classes and transforming yards in the San Francisco Bay Area since 2007. Lori's mission is to connect people to the soil and all that it provides, and that's what she's doing for us tonight. I will turn it over to her, and also we're gonna take a little poll. So if we can put that up, we'd love to hear what brought you here and what you're hoping to learn. There you go.
Oh, I'm gonna close my window. I got motorcycles and ambulances going on in the background.
Okay.
That's not cool.
I am going to share my screen.
All right. Well, while everyone's taking a poll, I just want to welcome everyone and welcome you to how to sheet mulch. Our big focus, of course, is going to be saving water and building healthy soil as part of the sheet mulching process. Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you so much for your answers. I appreciate it. I'm here today. I do some work. I'm an educator for StopWaste.org, our Alameda County Waste Management Authority. And our major focus right now is things like carbon farming. And so working with other people, urban farms and homeowners to increase their use of things like compost and mulch in their gardens for other benefits that are just aside from the benefits we're going to be talking about today. So I'd like to welcome everybody. I welcome any and all questions for certain. We will definitely, for those who have sheet mulch, I'm happy to troubleshoot. And so all questions are good questions. So sheet mulching basics. We can go to the next slide.
Sure we can.
Awesome.
There we go.
All right, so our agenda for today is, of course, we're going to talk about what it is sheet mulching, and we're going to talk about the very many benefits of the sheet mulching process. We're going to talk about the different steps, the prep step, the actual sheet mulching, planting after sheet mulching. Of course, we're going to talk about troubleshooting, and then we're also going to be talking about things like ongoing maintenance, which is something that's key. All the elements that you're going to be incorporating as part of your sheet mulching process are all biodegradable. So eventually those things will break down. So you will have to apply. And then of course, opportunity to answer any questions that you may have at the end or in the chat. Next slide. All right. So for those who don't know, what is sheet mulching? My own personal definition of sheet mulching is the kind of the perfect marriage of cardboard, compost, and mulch. Like I said earlier, all these items are organic in nature and will eventually break down into your soil. Oh, sorry, next slide. All right, the many benefits of sheet mulching. It's going to promote healthy soil and plants at StopWaste, and actually in my own personal life, healthy soil is really key to any kind of successful garden or landscape. Really super important. Healthy soil means that your plants are going to stay healthy. They're going to be less preyed upon by pests and diseases. By sheet mulching, you're also kind of feeding that ecology that exists underneath our soil. This whole host of fungus and bacteria and invertebrates, things like worms, roly-polies, the roots of other plants dying, decaying matter underneath there. Again, you feed that, and then it gives you love right back by helping control pests, diseases, and all the other benefits that we're going to be talking about. It's excellent for unused areas. So if you have a bare area or you have a weed patch that you're really not sure what you're going to do with, please, by all means, just go ahead and cover it up, especially if you're dealing with something like a heavy clay soil that you really want to try to kind of work on. Sheet mulch it, kind of set it aside, and then when you decide that if you are going to plant there, the soil is going to be better equipped to take on plants and for transplanting. Mulch creates a beautiful uniform kind of landscape. It's a great little blank slate from which to build a beautiful garden, and you can do a variety of different things in the sheet mulch process. A lot of our recipe involves a coarse mulch, so that's great things for like perennial plants, drought tolerant plants, as well as things like fruit trees. It saves you water, money, and a little bit of time. If you had a lawn, there's no more cutting of the lawn. The compost and mulch are going to hold onto water a lot longer. So you're going to save water. It's going to actually make your water work a little bit more efficiently. And then, of course, it's going to save you money by not having to go out and buy things like weed and feed or things to control different types of weeds in your garden. Weed suppression, that's where the cardboard comes into play, minimizes erosion. Healthy soil stays in place. If the analogy that I always use, but I'm not really comfortable using, is we get a lot of fires here in California, and generally speaking, we get the fires, and generally what happens soon after a fire, we get a fair amount of rain. And then usually with that comes with a lot of mudslides. Again, all the organic material has been kind of burned, not kind of, but has been burned away. So there's nothing for the soil to kind of hold on to. So by sheet mulching, you're kind of keeping the soil in place. So it's going to be more well equipped for a lot of water. It helps to protect the environment, mostly in the case of controlling things like greenhouse gases. If you're kind of recycling a lot of materials from your own house or things that you can get that don't end up being either composted or trucked somewhere else in order to be composted, you can bring them more local source ideas, then you're saving yourself on greenhouse gases, carbon monoxide for traveling, anything that may inadvertently become part of the landfill and become a methane gas. That's another big key factor. And then again, sheet mulching kind of creates this great little spongy layer between the compost and the mulch. So it's going to hold moisture in the soil a lot longer. That's going to help with things like fluctuating temperatures. And then that keeps your plants from getting stressed out. All right, the next slide, please. So we're going to talk about the prep. The prep is probably the most intensive portion of the sheet mulch process. There's a lot of different factors, but we're going to go over those. So first of all, if you can go to the next slide. You're cool. Check with your city, your water agency, or your state, depending on where you live, and see if they have any rebates for lawn conversion via the sheet mulching process. These are some local ones that we have here. I'm not sure what you might have in Boston, but I would definitely check as well and see. Most of them range in price. Each one's a little bit slightly different as far as how much money they give you or how that money is distributed. There's things that are also kind of bundled along with the lawn conversion rebates. Generally things around irrigation, some plant choices, pressure regulators for drip irrigation. So always check and see what everything they have to offer for you and apply for all of that. I mean, free money is free money. You're definitely going to want to do the application first and apply for the rebate prior to starting your project. They need to be able to give you the thumbs up prior to that before you get started. There's been far too many stories that I've heard about people who've gotten really excited about sheet mulching and they've gone and they've done it and then they've contacted the water agency for the rebate and they reject them because unfortunately they didn't check in with them first. So that's definitely, if you're interested today, check. The process takes usually about a couple of weeks, sometimes a little shorter. to do, and you usually end up, depending on the rebate, you have anywhere from about 6 to 12 months to complete your sheet mulching project. So call 811. So call before you dig. So if you're thinking about doing some trenching, which you should definitely do, that's part of our prep steps for sheet mulching, putting in large plants, something that's about 5 gallons or larger, you're going to want to call 811 just to be sure that when you go to dig, that there's nothing that you're going to be coming across, something like gas lines or power lines or any kind of utility. The nice thing about it is all done with one call. You call one time and then they send all the appropriate people, and they're going to flag and mark. It's just quick and very easy, and use that way you can just dig with confidence. Next. All right, some other must-haves for prep. If you're going to be adding any things like hardscape elements, so if you're going to be adding in pathways, or you're doing maybe like a dry creek bed, you should probably put those in first. Like I said, anything that's 5 gallons or larger, so fruit trees or large shrubs, you should probably put those in first. However, when you do put those items in, just be mindful that when you're going to be sheet mulching after the fact. So traditionally you would plant the plant pretty much just at level with the soil, with the top of the soil. You're going to actually want to plant them slightly higher above the soil in order to accommodate the next layers that are coming up. So why it ends up being more consistent, more like a bowl shape on top, which is probably what you want, as opposed to like a moundy shape, as opposed to like a bowl shape where there's just a area for water just to kind of sit and be there. And then when it gets irrigated and or when we get rain, you don't want that water just to sit at the root ball. That could be harmful to your tree. So just making sure that you kind of give yourself a little bit of space to sheet mulch around it after. Pull up thick weeds, and you know what those are, the ones with the really thick diameter stems. Pull those out to be on the safe side. And then anything that's waist high, just go ahead and chop down, mow down. But the best thing is, if you currently have a lawn, even if it's dead, that still counts for the rebate. I'm here to inform you that you do not need to remove it. I actually would not recommend it. It's just some extra work. You're going to sheet mulch over it. And basically, you're going to compost your lawn back into place. And so all the organic material and all the feed that you've given to it, it's going to die. And then all that nutrition is going to be released back into the soil. Again, building healthy soil is one of our key components for sheet mulching for sure. Next. All right. So trenching along the hardscape edges. I think this is probably one of the most important aspects of sheet mulching. You want to be able to have that mulch stay where it needs to stay, which is in your landscape. And if you put mulch at kind of the same level as your hardscape, excuse me, it's naturally going to want to spill over onto the hardscape. That creates a mess, especially if you're trying to get rid of something pernicious. You want that mulch to stay there for as long as possible. So trenching is going to be key. So hardscape can mean anything. Oh, excuse me. So sorry. Allergy season. Digging along the edges of sidewalks, patios, utility boxes. Our best depth is going to be about 3 to 6 inches deep, and you're going to want to do it at about a 45-degree angle at the hardscape. So that way, when you put the cardboard in, excuse me, the cardboard's going to lay down in the trench at an angle, at more of a slope, as opposed to kind of creating a 90-degree angle, which is the precipice. The mulch will never be able to kind of settle right in where it bends at that 90-degree angle. But at a 45, you're going to be doing a good job. I always use my spade shovel. The length of the spade shovel is a good kind of measure of how wide the trench should be. And then again, if you're trying to kind of hold back a running weed, putting the cardboard into the trench is going to help kind of keep it from running, because chances are If the weed's gonna try to escape, this is the area along the hardscape edges where it is gonna try to pop out. It's gonna try to seek light in that area. Your goal is to block out as much light as possible. Next. All right. So now that you're trenching, and so chances are you're probably going to have large clods of soil as well as your grass. This is a great way to kind of create mounds or reuse these items on site. Especially if you're doing things like drought tolerant plants, they actually encourage to have that additional drainage by creating a mound. That is super important. Or if that's something that you're not into, you can kind of lay everything kind of flat and just kind of grade your sheet mulch area slightly. But mounds create great visual interest, and it's going to save you a little bit of money because unfortunately, because there's a lot of soil that's associated with those clots, this material would actually have to go to the landfill and not to your green can. So it's going to save you a little bit of money. That way you don't have to take anything out and dump it. Next. All right. So while you're trenching, chances are you're going to be running into what existing irrigation that you have. Generally, if you have a lawn, it's going to be a lot of pop-up sprinklers. You can convert the pop-up sprinklers to drip irrigation. If you're more kind of a DIYer kind of person, you can connect things strictly at the valve and incorporate things like a filter and a pressure regulator as part of it. But if you're kind of in a little bit of a low tech kind of situation and you still want to be able to convert these things to drip, you can do so by my favorite thing, which is the conversion kit. It contains a pressure regulator and a filter. And as you can see on the bottom, it has the option to do 2 half-inch lines off of that. And then you can connect off of that with emitters or additional lines, or depending on what type of drip irrigation that you're using. This stuff still qualifies. I know it qualifies for the East Bay Mud rebate because it does contain a pressure regulator, brings your pressure down to about 25 to 30 pounds per square inch. You definitely want to not have the water that just comes straight out of your house to be part of the irrigation process. You're going to really pretty much blow the irrigation tubing. So yeah, bringing it down to 30 PSI is going to be great. All right. And then you're going to want to cap the ones that you don't want to use. So it's going to take a little thought out on your part, determine where kind of where the hub is going to be, and then where your irrigation is going to lay out. You're going to want to layer your emitters and your hoses underneath the mulch layer, between the mulch and the compost. The nice thing about it is because the mulch itself is not only going to protect the kind of plastic rubbery situation that irrigation tubing that's made out of, you don't want them to be beat down on sun. It's going to wear them out a lot faster, as well as that water, as it's emitted, it's trapped between that mulch and compost layer. And so evaporation itself is a lot lower than as opposed to if it's an overspray by standard irrigation, or even if the emitters are on top of the mulch. So kind of sandwiching it in between those two layers is going to be really key. If you're not planting right away, just go ahead and convert the ones and then just mark where your new hub is going to be. Right now would not be a really good time to plant any kind of drought tolerant plant, as we're kind of working our way into summer. Fall is always going to be a good time to do that in order to take advantage of any of the winter rains we may have. And if you have any questions, check out your local irrigation store. They have all the stuff. And then they're very, very helpful to help you with, and just go with all your questions, even if it's just kind of a schematic or a picture of your landscape and an idea about where plants will go or existing plants. All right, next slide. All right, so now we're going to get into the sheet mulching. Next slide. All right, so the first layer is cardboard. It's a weed blocker. Unlike landscape fabric, it is actually permeable. I have done a lot of work around and had to deal with landscape fabric, and I'm here to tell you that you can build healthy soil on top of landscape fabric, but that does not work its way down into your soil barrier. I've seen 3 or 4 inches of something that looks really good on top, but all I see is really is dead roots and pretty much denuded soil and dry soil underneath. So cardboard is gonna give you what weed blocker can't, and in many instances, you can get cardboard for free. That's my favorite. Recycled cardboard. Go to bicycle shops, furniture stores, grocery stores, and collect a lot of cardboard boxes. So they will eventually break down and build up the healthy soil, which of course is key. Making sure to overlap them by 6 to 8 inches and making sure to water each layer in place. Not so much water. You mostly just kind of want to just make it weighted. And in some instances, I really actually don't water it down at all. I want that cardboard to last as long as possible. And the nice thing about using cardboard boxes as well is it really increases your ability to really do a really good overlap and really create some really good dense layers that's going to keep weeds from emerging from the top. And then, like I said, here on the bottom, for areas with Bermuda grass, apply cardboard, apply several layers, but do not wet it. You want that to last as long as humanly possible in order to really kind of stamp it down. I talked about a couple of places where you can get it. You can go to the IKEA, there's Costco, furniture stores. Any kind of box is a good box, with the exception is I usually don't use things like boxes that have big stickers on the sides. Usually they're kind of white boxes with colorful stickers on the outside, but like the boxes that you see here, or if they're just kind of plain white boxes, I will definitely use them. I will avoid things like waxed boxes. But I understand that you can go to the next slide, that there may be you maybe just want to get this done right away and you want to be able to go out and just instantly get cardboard. And you can buy cardboard rolls. They range in prices depending on where you get them. They generally come in about lengths of 250 feet or more, usually about 3 to 4 feet wide. The style is called a B flute. It's easy to apply, especially on flat surfaces, just to roll them out. We just recommend that when you do it, you're going to need to get enough to not only overlap 6 to 8 inches going in one direction, but to go 6 to 8 inches going and kind of crossing over, just to kind of increase the depth and the thickness of the cardboard. And I've seen a lot of projects that have used both. So you've got these mounds and now you need to go ahead and lay the cardboard over it. You're going to want to run the boxes or the cardboard kind of vertically across the mound. If you try to go across in a straight line, you're going to create kind of like a pucker where the mulch is going to end up stuck in a pocket. You want it to kind of cover it on the top. And of course, the mound itself will kind of settle down eventually, which is nice. And then of course you can plant right on top of it. And of course, again, if you're trying to get rid of something nasty, do more layers, please. Next. All right. So our second layer is compost. You're going to probably put a 2-inch layer on top of the cardboard. It's going to provide food for new plantings. It's going to feed the soil food web. It's going to hold on to moisture a lot longer. And then you're going to pop, if you're planting right away, you're going to pop the irrigation tubing right on top of this layer. And then our final topper is going to be a coarse mulch. A minimum of 3 inches on top of the compost layer, and it's going to create that sponge and to keep evaporation pretty much at bay, allowing this area to hold on to water a lot longer, again breaking down and kind of building that healthy soil. So if you have something like a clay soil, it's really going to open that clay soil up and increase the drainage, plus provide nutrition. If you have sandy soil like I do, it's actually going to hold and clump those sandy particles together to hold water longer, as to holding on to nutrition a lot longer as well. Please be sure that when you're applying mulch around the base of your trees or base of your plants, you definitely want to be able to allow for some space. Mulch has great water holding capabilities, but by putting it too close to the kind of trunks or trees or the base of your plants, you're actually increasing the water sometimes a little bit too close, and that could become problematic for your plants. I always use the description. I'm not looking for a turtleneck, nothing really close. I want something a little bit off the shoulder. I want to have a little bit of space in order for my plant to be able to take advantage of the benefits of mulch, but not too close. And then again, these are things that are going to have to be reapplied once it does break down. Just an example of a sheet mulch job I did in El Cerrito. We got rid of juniper and ivy, and we sheet mulched it, and she did a combination of California natives and some desert plants. Next. The kind of 3 steps, the beginning, the trenching with some mounding, and then what it looks like when you top it with the mulch. All right. So planting after sheet mulching. So I guess my first question or my first statement is, what are you trying to get rid of underneath the sheet mulch? Is it just kind of your basic run of the mill weeds? Is it just former lawn? Then I would say, yes, go ahead and plant right away. But if you're trying to get rid of something pernicious like a Bermuda grass or maybe ivy, I would definitely wait a few months before I planted. That's why now will be a good time to kind of consider doing sheet mulching. First of all, before it gets really kind of hot, nothing worse than trying to shovel mulch in 90-degree heat. And also just for the fact you want to be able to try to kill that thing for as long as you possibly can before you, because the moment you try to open it up by digging into the cardboard to plant, then that's all the light sometimes a pernicious weed needs. So for 1 gallon plants, you're gonna cut through the cardboard. You're gonna pull it back kind of like a flower and get down to where the soil area is. You're gonna rough the soil up. Take out your 1 gallon plant. If it happens to be root bound, you're definitely going to want to loosen those roots. We talk about kind of like the rip and grip. Just grab the base of it and just give it a good twist. Or sometimes you have to kind of go after it with a hory or a shovel or a small hand tool. You definitely want to go ahead and loosen those roots before you plant them, just to give them the opportunity to kind of get established and not spend their first few weeks just kind of trying to uncoil itself or not being able to uncoil at all. Root bound plants usually have a tendency to difficulty to grow. Then you're going to put it back into the hole. You're going to return the cardboard kind of around it. If there's the opportunity to add some compost, I'd probably do that, and then return the mulch kind of around the base of it, and then just making sure that it's not too close to the base. If you are trying to do 4-inch plants, the process is even better. There's no digging into the cardboard at all. So you're going to go down through the mulch, the compost layer, and then you're going to remove your 4-inch plant. Chances are it's probably not going to be root bound because it's pretty small. You're going to place that right on the cardboard and bring the compost and mulch back around it. And then as the plant starts to grow mature, the roots are going to penetrate down into the cardboard and into the soil. And then, of course, replace with mulch if necessary. Next. All right. I talked about not putting mulch too close around the base of your plants. Super important. For succulents, I usually give them a little bit more room, and I will substitute some of the mulch for some potting soil that has a little bit more drainage. Definitely too much moisture is a succulent killer. So you definitely don't want to plant that too close. Next. All right. So I talked about stopping at this point to kind of looking at the questions in the chat. So let me go ahead and do that really quick. Let's see. I'm sorry, Terry, is it better to buy cardboard or not for 12 by 40 front yard than want to put chips on top? I mean, like I said, I'm a huge fan of recycled cardboard, and sometimes it's just a question of calling different places and seeing if they have any cardboard available. For some of them, they just may make their cardboard accessible to you. Sometimes I'll show up on Sundays at Trader Joe's while they're stocking, and then I'll fill up my cart with cardboard. So check with things like Craigslist or FreeCycle. We have a great Facebook page called Alameda East Bay Garden Friends. It's on Facebook. If you're looking for cardboard, it's a great way to kind of post and talk about that. But yeah, I would say if for something that size, certainly I would definitely try to go with recycled cardboard. Let's see.
Lori, I can read you the questions if you'd like.
Oh no,
Lori.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yes. So Gina, yeah, she mulched my front yard, but the weeds came back around the edges. And so yeah, so really, like I said, that's really all about kind of trenching and making sure that you go down that 3 to 6 inches, and you do it that angle. And even if you have to put a few layers of cardboard in there, it's not so much just that first layer sometimes. And this is where the small boxes really come into play. You can put 2 or 3 layers right in that trench to really kind of make sure that's definitely a lot lasting. And the birds are playing in there because there's a fair amount of bugs in there, of course. So let's see. Will some plastic hurt the process? As far as plastic as far as the plastic landscape cloth, I would say yes. Overall, in the long term, the plastic weed cloth could be harmful because as it breaks down, it doesn't break down into large sheets. It breaks down into very, very small pieces. If you're thinking about maybe the plastic that tape that boxes come on, I am in the mind of that I usually leave the tape on just for the fact that if I'm doing my own sheet mulching or I've mulched in one of my clients' yards, if I see plastic, if I see tape, then I know not only has the mulch broke down, but the cardboard is breaking down as well. And now it comes time for me to do some maintenance where I'm going to want to patch with dry cardboard and put fresh mulch on top. Let's see. Is there cardboard that contains toxins? I spoke about this briefly. Like I said, things like big TV boxes where it's just a big, large bleached white box with a large colored label on it, not knowing what the ink situation is on those colored labels. I would definitely try to avoid that for sure. But anything else, I would definitely use, except for the exception, of course, things like wax boxes. I wouldn't use those. Why do you put compost on top of the cardboard instead of underneath? So you can put them underneath the cardboard for certain, but if you're going to be planting, that compost will be especially if you're planting right on top of the cardboard, that compost will be readily available for your plants, as well as the moisture holding capabilities as well. That is something also important. As part of the entire process. It's just a good backup for mulch as far as food and water holding capabilities. All right, we're taking out, we have an ivy area. If you're going to, I would try to pull out as much as I can. And again, like something that's really pernicious, I would definitely make sure that I'm doing a really good job of trenching. And then I would go a little bit thicker on the cardboard and a little bit thicker on the mulch in order to really kind of, tamp that down. Any tips for sheet mulching to rid of abundant foxtails? Other than just making sure that you chop them down as you kind of see them prior to sheet mulching. And then again, just making sure you go thicker on that. That would be the only special tip that I would definitely have. Anything that's kind of pernicious, you can go thicker. And again, the little thicker the cardboard, it's still going to be permeable, but just it's still going to hold up its integrity as far as a weed blocker is concerned. Let's see, what types of mulch are best? The Cadillac of mulches, as far as I'm concerned, is redwood mulch, just because it's used to being wet. So it takes a long time to break down, but you can't always have that. I like a good arbor mulch, something that I can get from a arborist or a tree trimmer. The nice thing about it is if you live here in Alameda County, I'm not sure about Contra Costa County, but there is a landfill ban on organic material. All that stuff has to be diverted specifically to to make compost or to be used as mulch. So it's a great way to be able to help out a local arborist, as well as save him or her a lot of money, in order, because they're going to have to take that material to be trucked, pay hours, pay gas. But if they happen to be in your neighborhood and you happen to be on their list, they can go ahead and drop off some stuff at any time. All right. I usually skip things like eucalyptus, black walnut, or black locust. As far as mulches are concerned, I do this for the main reason because in nature, they exist and they have these properties that don't allow anything else to grow underneath, these allelopathic properties. And so for me personally, if I have to shovel 10, 20 cubic yards of eucalyptus mulch and I find that I cannot plant anything of it because the eucalyptus won't allow it, now I have to remove 10 to 20 cubic yards of eucalyptus. I need to find a way of disposing it. And well, in the meantime, I'm trying to find a replacement. So I just go ahead and skip it altogether. Newspaper can be helpful, but cardboard is going to be your best bet. So if you could do more of a cardboard heavier layer and maybe use newspaper as a backup, but it's really going to be more about cardboard. I've done a little sheet mulching in edible beds with newspaper, instead of using a coarse mulch like a tree prunings. I've used straw, and I still use the compost and the newspaper. It holds on to water, but not as hard as a coarse mulch would hold on to water. So how long does it typically take from when you start sheet mulching to when you plant in a project you're done? Well, anytime is really a good time to start sheet mulching. Again, take into consideration if it's hot, you may not want to be shoveling buckets and buckets of mulch during our hot summers or humid summers, depending on where you're living. And so say you wanted to do it today, the weather's still pretty decent. You wanted to do it today, then I would probably wait until right before first rains come in order to plant. And that at this point would be kind of anything. If I wanted to do fruit trees, if I wanted to do drop tolerant plants, I would wait till the fall in order to plant, in order to keep the plant from having to be stressed out. This way, the winter rains and any kind of subsequent irrigation that you have, it's going to force the roots deep into the soil, and that way, when the summer finally comes, they'll have the opportunity to be more prepared to handle hot temperatures and the range and change of temperatures. All right. Is there dangers with chip trap, with weeds in the material? It's entirely possible. I've never used chip drop. With me, if I'm going to try to get a free mulch, it's something from an arborist. I'm going to choose an arborist. Chances are they're probably going to be just mostly handling actual trees. There's a lot of kind of tree trimmer cleanup groups where they're just going to kind of bundle everything in together, ivy and chipped up wood, or vinca and chipped up wood. So I would definitely check and ask, but yeah, I'm not too familiar with chip drop. I've been looking into them, but I haven't done that yet. Lots of crane flies here in spring. I'm not familiar with the crane fly. If you're thinking that you need to spare an area, and this also applies to some of our native bees, if you think you need to be able to kind of spare some bare soil for that, then I would definitely recommend it. Set aside maybe a little corner or a couple little corners in your landscape for bare soil, in order to accommodate the organisms that live in the soil or nest in the soil. Oh, great. Okay, I will definitely check in with that chip drop then. Oh, thank you, Gina. All right. So, troubleshooting. I've been talking about Bermuda grass. I get a lot of calls about Bermuda grass and how to get rid of it. It can be difficult. Again, it's really all about trenching and making sure that the edges are clean. Sometimes there's even about kind of scraping the existing Bermuda grass along off the edges of the inside edges of where the hardscape is. Those extra layers of cardboard. Don't be afraid to use extra mulch on top. Also, too, one of my colleagues at StopWaste, she had a great idea about planting asters, members of the daisy family, along their property line. In some instances, the Bermuda grass you have may not be yours. It may be coming over from a neighbor's yard. So by trying to kind of create a barrier, members of the aster family, their roots are so fibrous that it creates a wall that even Bermuda grass can't get through. So that's another option. Next slide, please. Just some examples of a Bermuda grass gone awry. This area had been previously sheet mulch, but unfortunately they had encroachment from a neighbor's yard coming from left, from stage left there. You can see it kind of encroaching on that. And then it just takes up and starts to root. So you can see it's kind of, the mulch is buried. Next slide. All right. In the wintertime, when we finally do get the rains, you will see a wide variety of fungus. And depending on the type of wood that you have, it will vary. And I have some other pictures. It's completely natural, totally part of the process. If you have concern with your kids or your pets eating them, feel free to pull the cap, but it's still really going on underneath underneath the wood. And so you won't be able to remove that. So sometimes you'll get a couple of generations of fungus before the weather gets too dry, and then everything kind of dies back. Next slide. Couple other examples. There's also one here that I did not include. Next slide. It's called dog vomit. So it kind of does look like dog vomit. So don't be, I mean, you can be, of course, be disgusted, but don't be surprised if you get it. Right now, what we got going on right now is a lot of oxalis, aka sourgrass. So oxalis propagates pretty much by anything. It's kind of like the terminator of plants. It's very difficult to get rid of. I think in some instances it's even more difficult than Bermuda grass, just for the fact that you can sheet mulch an area, but sometimes you end up getting things like flyovers or pollen that's being spread, or maybe your neighbor is pulling it. And the nice thing about it is very easy to kind of pull out of existing mulch. Just making sure that you try to pull it out as much out of it as you can, and try to get it before it starts to flower, especially. So again, like I said, there's really no new good news about it. You just kind of treat oxalis like that one little relative that shows up at your house once a year, stays about 3 to 5 months, and then leaves. And you know it's going to happen every year. It's kind of one of those things. All right, so ongoing maintenance. So next slide, please. So once the cardboard kind of peeks out again, once the tape kind of is flapping in the wind, you know it's time to add some more cardboard and some more mulch. So I'm just gonna go ahead, patch. I'm gonna treat it kind of like I'm getting rid of like a bad mole. I'm gonna move it back to where I see where it's all kind of broken down. I'm gonna create a much bigger patch, put on top of it to kind of cover the margins or kind of the edges, just to be on the safe side. And then I'm gonna add at least another 3 inches of mulch on top. Next. Watering plants. So most drought tolerant plants will probably need anywhere from 1 to 2, sometimes 3 years in order to get established. Usually the fleshier stemmed ones will adjust a lot faster than, say, maybe the woodier stem ones would be. That's where you kind of get in that 3-year thing. But once they become established, then you can turn off the irrigation and then allow for the winter rains to make sure that they stay watered. Of course, here in California, there may be the option of doing some supplemental watering in the summertime. just to avoid stress of your plants. So weeds, again, you get flyovers, squirrels come, birds come, and they leave their seeds behind. The nice thing about it is because they're very easy to pull out. So maintenance is going to be just making sure that the weeds pretty much don't take hold on your new sheet mulch. Next. All right. So I know that we have the resources that we're going to be sending to you, a couple of PDFs of some great brochures, but you can find all of our information around sheet mulching from our website, lawntogarden.org. So we have how-to videos, we have infographics, links to all the rebate programs here in the state of California. There's a marketplace where you can put your zip code in and find things like cardboard, or if you wanted to buy mulch and compost, you can find those as well. And then, of course, links to things like our events and webinars. We have things like design elements, all kinds of stuff. And again, I mentioned our Facebook page, East Bay Garden Friends. So if you're looking for cardboard, you're looking for tips as far as sheet mulching concerned, please feel free to check us out there. I think that's it, right? Yep, that's it.
Sure.
And that's me. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.
Lori, there are a couple more questions.
Okay, groovy. I will look at the chat.
At the very bottom, there are a couple.
Let's see. What is the best approach to save some existing plants in area to be sheet mulched? Oh, the nice thing about it is you can sheet mulch you can sheet mulch around already existing plants, especially if it's something that's already well established. Please, by all means, go ahead and sheet mulch around it, just by making sure that you want to make sure that, of course, that you don't get too close to the main trunk. You can, stop with the cardboard, put compost in the middle around the trunk and on top of the cardboard, and then allow a little space for the mulch for sure. So you can definitely do that. Let's see. Can you sheet mulch an area where you want to convert a lawn to a different type of native ground cover? Yeah. Oh, you want to convert so you want to do like a native ground cover. I mean, if you're trying to do a native ground cover, there are benefits to sheet mulching it. It's not only for the water savings or the ability to hold onto water. I think that would be something. And then I would definitely still do the compost. There's still great benefits to utilizing the compost as well, definitely. But yeah, I would not skip the mulch part. I would still go for it. Awesome. You are more than welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much. Like I said, I want to, of course, thank StopWaste and, of course, the Alameda Backyard Growers for having me this evening. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for all your great questions. And check out our resources and our Facebook page. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Lori. That was awesome. I learned so much and all the things I'm currently doing wrong. So thank you. Specifically around Bermuda grass. It's just horrible. I also want to give a little plug that you are on.
Yeah, it is.
Go ahead.
I am. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, I am on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. You could just find me at Compost Gal in either one of those two places. So yeah, I'm really working on focusing on a series. And as we move into the summer months and we're approaching, of course, things like drought, sheet mulching is going to be kind of key in order to keep our plants healthy and keep them from getting too stressed out during this time as well.
For sure. Thank you all for attending tonight. This is a great way to celebrate Earth Day. We'll be sending out Lori's presentation and some of the documents she talked about. I also put them in the chat, so you can find them there if you'd like to look for them. And you want a little instant gratification and some reading for this evening. I'll also emphasize East Bay Garden Friends on Facebook. They often answer a lot of great questions. I'm not sure if you are a moderator there, Lori, but folks are super knowledgeable and engaged on that site.
I chime in from time to time.
Nice, nice. And we will be posting all of these resources on our website and also on our YouTube channel. So you can rewatch this and get answers to any questions you might have if you've forgotten or your notes look like my notes, slightly illegible. And we hope to see you at the next education event. Thank you all for joining tonight.